Hi, today we are reviewing Young Goodman Brown in a very simple way, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne in 1835. This is a simple story about what happens to a man when he loses his faith. Now, don't get caught up in all the symbolism and allegory of the old Puritans. This story could have taken place at any time and in any place, even today. But our story takes place in Old Salem, Massachusetts, probably around 1680, which is right after King Philip's War, which is referenced in the story. The main theme of the story is what happens to a man after he loses his faith. Faith in his family, his community, his teachers, his elders, and eventually himself. And this can be structured just like any high school book report. You have an introduction where we establish the setting, the story, and meet the characters. 3 main paragraphs of how our hero loses his faith, and a conclusion for what happens after he loses his faith. So for our introduction, who is young Goodman Brown? Well, he is young. He's only been married 3 months, and since the average age of men who got married in Salem was 26 years old, he is probably only 25 or 26. And he hasn't lived long enough to gain the maturity of who he really is, or what his purpose in life really should be. Next, he is also called Goodman, which in Salem was just a simple title put before your surname. If you were a man of importance or influence, like a deacon or a council member, you were called Mr., like Mr. Smith or Mr. Johnson. But if you were just a regular run-of-the-mill kind of guy, you were just called Goodman. And your wife was called Goodwife. And Goody was just a nickname for your wife or another nice lady. And Brown, well, that's probably just his name. It doesn't really mean anything. So this is a story of the test of the man's faith. How does young Goodman Brown lose his faith, and what happens after he loses it? First, this naive man, he purposely leaves faith as a sort of test to himself and his morals. In the beginning of the story, we learn Goodman Brown needs to journey out into the woods on an important errand to meet somebody. So he says goodbye to his wife, Faith, with the pure pink ribbon in her hair, which is really her name, by the way, but also sort of symbolic that he wants to go on this errand on his own terms without the help of Faith and her purity, which is really a reflection of his lack of maturity. But he's also a bit apprehensive about going anyway, but he goes on the errand to meet the devil. Second, he learns that his faith is no longer pure and true, and this happens over a bit of a process. Goodman Brown meets up with the devil, who tries to pursue Goodman Brown to follow him to the dark side. But Goodman Brown looks at the devil, is not persuaded, decides that he has passed his self-test, and proceeds to go home. But the devil is rather persistent and plays a few tricks on Goodman Brown. He tells him about how Goodman Brown's father and grandfather already joined the devil, how Goodman Brown's catechism teacher and mentor, Goody Cloyce, is already a witch, and how the town deacon and other important people in the community are already on the side of evil. But still doubting the devil and contemplating to himself, he looks up to the heavens and the blue arch of stars, which is really the Milky Way galaxy, and proclaims, "With heaven above and faith below, I will yet stand firm against the devil." But then a cloud covered the stars. He heard the voice of his wife Faith in the clouds, followed by the voices of many sinners and saints, encouraging her onward with the devil. The cloud dispersed, and Faith's pink ribbon of purity floated down through the air to Goodman Brown. He confirms to himself, "My faith is gone." Third, Goodman Brown must pass a final test of his faith. We find him at the burning altar, face to face with his wife Faith. They were about to be baptized by the shape of evil, anointed from a basin of reddened water, or perhaps blood. Goodman Brown did not give in. He cries out one final time, "Faith, Faith, look up to the heaven and resist the wicked one." Then, instantly, Goodman Brown is alone by himself in the forest. In conclusion, whether or not this was a dream or not, or if his wife Faith was baptized by the devil, or whether or not his family and community members had already joined with the devil for evil, none of that is really important. What is important is that Goodman Brown believed these things, and not only gave up on his family and peers, but also gave up on his own faith. And in doing so, he lives a life not really worth living. Of course, he has a wife, children, and grandchildren, but he is just a sad, skeptical, unhappy old man with no faith in himself or his community. He has basically no purpose, no guidance, and what we call no faith. He dies an old, hoary corpse with no hopeful message to write on his tombstone. His dying hour, as was his whole life, was gloom. So that is what happens when a man loses his faith. All right, that was pretty simple. Thanks for listening. Bye.